Ambassador Jin stepped through the shimmering portal that led to the main platform of Nexus Station. The moment his feet touched the alien metal, a wave of filtered air hit him. It smelled of ozone and something sweet, like flowers he couldn't eat. Name. Above him, the ceiling stretched up so high he couldn't see the top. Walkways and platforms spiraled around massive pillars, connected by bridges that seemed to float without support. Ships arrived constantly. Some looked like living creatures with wings and tentacles. Others were geometric shapes that hurt to look at for too long. A few appeared to be made of pure energy, their forms shifting like liquid starlight. Jin tried not to stare, but everything was so alien, so impossible. His translator device buzzed softly as various beings spoke in languages that sounded like music, static, or grinding stones. He caught fragments of conversations about trade routes, boundary disputes, and something called the Great Harmony. Most of the beings ignored him completely. A few studied him with eyes, sensors, or organs he couldn't identify. A guide creature approached him. It floated at chest height, looking like a mixture of jellyfish and hovercraft. Its voice came from everywhere at once. "Human delegate, the council awaits. Please follow the blue lights." A path of soft blue illumination appeared on the floor, leading deeper into the station. Jin followed the lights through corridors that seemed to change size as he walked. Sometimes the ceiling pressed low, forcing him to duck. Other times it opened into cathedral-like spaces. He passed through what looked like a market, where beings traded things he couldn't understand. Glowing liquids in containers that defied physics. Crystallized music that tinkled when touched. Living tools that wrapped around their users' limbs. Path led to massive doors that opened silently as he approached. The council chamber beyond took his breath away. It was shaped like an amphitheater, but inverted, with seats rising toward a dome overhead. Hundreds of different beings occupied spots designed for their specific anatomy. Some hung from the ceiling, others floated in spheres of liquid. A few existed as patterns of light that moved across dedicated surfaces. Jin's assigned spot was a simple platform with a chair that adjusted itself as he sat down. A table rose from the floor, offering water and what looked like protein bars. He was grateful for the familiar items. The center of the chamber held a complex holographic display that currently showed slowly rotating galaxies. As Jin watched, the image zoomed in to show star systems, trade routes, and what looked like territories marked in different colors. A deep humming sound filled the chamber, and all conversation ceased. The central display changed to show Earth, surrounded by detailed technical readouts. Jin's heart sank as he saw the planet marked with symbols that looked like mining equipment and construction platforms. The Etherian delegate, a being that looked like living crystal wrapped in energy, spoke first. Its voice came from all directions, translated perfectly into English. Species designation human, native world Earth, Sol system. You have been selected for integration into the Galactic Council's prosperity sphere. Jin started to respond, but the Etherian continued. Your integration requirements are as follows. Immediate surrender of 70% of all planetary mineral rights. Submission of genetic samples from all population centers for evolutionary optimization. Relocation of 30% of your population to designated work colonies throughout the outer systems. The chamber fell completely silent. Jin looked around, seeing expressions he thought might be expectation or boredom on the alien faces. A few delegates seemed to be reviewing other documents while this presentation continued. Furthermore, the Etherian added, your technology will be evaluated and standardized to Council specifications. Your governing systems will be restructured to align with galactic law. Compliance is expected within 1 local year. Jin stood slowly, his legs feeling weak. This wasn't negotiation. This wasn't even conquest. This was administrative, like processing paperwork. Honored delegates, Jin began, his voice steadier than he felt. I'm afraid there's been some misunderstanding. We came here seeking dialogue, hoping to establish peaceful relations and mutual benefit. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the chamber. Several delegates made sounds that his translator rendered as chuckles, though they sounded like grinding metal or bubbling liquid. Human delegate, a new voice spoke. This came from a serpentine being that seemed to be made of flowing mercury. All species expressed confusion initially. The integration process has been refined over millions of your years. Compliance brings prosperity. Resistance brings, it paused, inconvenience. What if we refuse? Jin asked. The reaction was immediate. The chamber erupted in sounds that his translator struggled with. Harsh static, discordant notes, grinding, noises. It took him a moment to realize this was laughter. The Etherean delegate flickered brighter. Refuse. No species refuses. The Hydrari attempted this 2,000 cycles ago. They exist now as agricultural specialists on 17 worlds. The crystalline collective thought themselves above integration 500 cycles past. They provided excellent infrastructure workers. Jin felt something shift in his chest. The careful diplomatic phrases he'd memorized seemed suddenly inadequate. And if we choose to stand by our refusal? Absolute silence fell over the chamber. This was clearly not a question anyone had ever asked twice. The Etherean's energy patterns seemed to stutter. We do not understand. Choice implies alternatives. You have no alternatives. Jin looked around the chamber at the hundreds of beings, each representing a species that had once been independent. Each had apparently accepted these terms. He thought of Earth, of humanity's long history of refusing to bow to ultimatums, even when facing overwhelming odds. Then I'm afraid we'll have to agree to disagree. Hana pressed her palm against the scanner outside the arena. The display flickered green, confirming her identity as the human champion. Through the transparent walls, she could see the massive arena beyond. Sand covered the floor, and thousands of aliens filled the stands. Their voices created a low rumble that vibrated through the floor. She had 3 hours before the first trial, 3 hours to prepare for combat against creatures that had evolved for war in ways humans couldn't imagine. Hana thought back to her briefing from Admiral Kim. Every species that joined the Council went through these trials. They were designed to demonstrate the hopelessness of resistance. The Vorthak stood 8 feet tall. Its carapace looked like black metal, scarred from countless battles. 4 arms ended in claws that could probably punch through tank armor. The creature's head was mostly hidden behind a war mask, decorated with the skulls of defeated champions. Hana checked her equipment one more time. The Council had been surprisingly generous. They allowed each species to bring their finest warriors and best weapons. She suspected this was part of the psychological warfare. Let them bring everything they had, then crush them completely. Her suit was standard marine armor, lightweight but tough. She carried a plasma rifle, compact but powerful enough to cut through most materials. At her hip she had a gravity knife, a blade surrounded by a field that made it incredibly sharp. Her backpack held various tools and supplies. Interesting. Choices, said a voice behind her. Hana turned to see the Etherean observer. Up close, the being was even stranger. It looked like living glass, with energy patterns flowing through its transparent body. The Corvan champion brought traditional energy weapons, the Etherean continued. The Zephyrians chose their ancestral blade dancers, all very predictable. Hana said nothing. She had learned that silence often made people, or aliens, reveal more than questions did. Your equipment seems eclectic, the Etherean observed. A plasma rifle, but also chemical explosives. A gravity blade, but also a simple steel knife. Are you perhaps uncertain of your species' strengths? I'm certain of my own strengths, Hana replied. The Etherean's energy patterns shifted in what might have been amusement. We shall see. The first trial begins in 2 hours and 47 minutes. The Vorthak has not lost a challenge in 300 cycles. It has forgotten the names of most of its opponent's species. After the observer left, Hana sat down and began what looked like meditation. Actually, she was running through tactical scenarios. Marines were trained to adapt to any situation. That adaptability was what she planned to use against an enemy that had probably never faced humans before. The arena call came sooner than expected. As Hana walked through the entrance tunnel, she could hear the crowd's excitement. Thousands of beings from dozens of species had come to watch the latest species. Be humbled. The sand was freshly raked, covering any evidence of previous battles. Hana wondered how many had died here. The thought didn't scare her. She had seen death before. What bothered her was the feeling that this was all a show, a performance to break humanity's spirit. The Vorthak entered from the opposite side. Its footsteps made the ground shake. Up close, Hannah could see that its armor wasn't just decoration. The creature had been in real battles. Recent ones, judging by the fresh scratches. The announcer spoke in a language Hannah didn't recognize, but her translator provided a running commentary. Something about the glory of the trials and the honor of facing a council champion. Hannah studied her opponent. It moved well for something its size. The way it held its weapons suggested it had been fighting for a very long time. This wouldn't be easy. The Etherian monitor floated between them. Champion of the Vorthak, you face the representative of species. Human. The trial is combat until one yields or falls. Standard council rules apply. No weapons may be used that were not declared before the trial. Hannah raised her plasma rifle. The Vorthak lifted 2 massive warhammers, each probably weighing more than she did. You may begin when ready, the monitor announced, then floated quickly away. The Vorthak roared, a sound that made the arena walls vibrate. It charged forward with incredible speed. Hannah dove to the side, firing her plasma rifle as she moved. The shot struck the alien's armor and scattered like water on stone. The creature's hammer smashed into the sand where she had been standing, sending debris flying. Hannah rolled and came up firing again. This time she aimed for joints in the armor. The shots found gaps and the alien roared in pain and rage. Hannah smiled grimly. The council might know human technology and tactics from their databases, but they didn't understand human nature. They expected her to fight like every other species, with honor, following their rules, trying to match strength against strength. Hannah had no intention of fighting fair. The real trial had just begun. Admiral Kwan stood on the bridge of the ESS, Defiance, watching the enemy fleet through the main viewer. 60 massive ships hung in space around Earth like a noose. Each one could destroy his entire fleet without effort. The sight should have filled him with despair. Instead, he felt oddly calm. "Status report," he ordered. Lieutenant Jin worked at his station. "All ships report ready, sir. Fleet formation holding steady." Kwan nodded. His fleet was a joke by military standards. The Defiance itself had been a cargo hauler before the emergency. The engines were overpowered for the frame, making the ship shake at full thrust. Most of the fleet were converted civilian ships with weapons hastily bolted to their hulls. "Sir," Officer Min called out, "the Etherian flagship is demanding response. They want immediate surrender negotiations." "Put them on screen," Kwan ordered. The viewer flickered, showing the interior of an alien ship. Crystal formations covered, the walls pulsing with soft light. An Etherian delegate appeared, its body a shifting pattern of energy within a transparent shell. "Admiral Kwan of species human," the alien spoke. "Your resistance is noted but futile. Our fleet contains 60 dreadnoughts. Each carries enough firepower to level your largest cities. Surrender now, and your species will be given standard integration terms." Kwan clasped his hands behind his back. "I appreciate the offer, but we respectfully decline." The Etherian's energy patterns shifted rapidly. Kwan had learned this meant confusion or anger. "Decline? Admiral, your fleet consists of cargo ships and civilian vessels. This is not warfare, this is suicide." "Maybe," Kwan said, "but it's our choice to make." The alien fell silent for a moment. "Very well. You have 1 hour to reconsider. After that, we will demonstrate the futility of resistance." The screen went dark. Around the bridge, officers waited for orders. Some looked scared. Others seemed excited. Kwan felt proud of them all. "Execute Plan Quicksilver," he commanded. His fleet began to move. The formation broke apart, ships scattering in all directions. To the watching aliens, it must have looked like panic. Several enemy ships moved to intercept, probably expecting the humans to run. Instead, the human ships did something unexpected. They dove towards Saturn's rings. "Sir," Navigation Officer Lee reported, "we're entering the ring system. Ion storms are interfering with sensors." "Perfect," Kwan replied. "Continue as planned." The council ships followed, but cautiously. The ice and rock of Saturn's rings played havoc with most sensors. The human ships seemed to dance through the debris field, using gravity assists and ion winds to change course rapidly. What the aliens didn't know was that humans had been mining these rings for 50 years. Every Earthship captain knew them, like their own backyard. They knew which chunks of ice were hollow, which rocks were actually ancient mining platforms, and where the automated supply depots were hidden. The first Council ship entered the ring system confidently. Its shields easily deflected the small debris impacts. The captain probably thought this was just a desperate attempt to hide. That's when the fireworks started. Hidden throughout the rings were devices that looked like ordinary mining charges. The aliens' sensors dismissed them as old equipment. When they all detonated at once, they created a chain reaction of electromagnetic pulses and debris clouds. 2 Council ships lost power immediately. 3 others suffered serious damage to their sensor arrays. The remaining ships in the ring system suddenly found themselves flying blind in a debris field that was actively trying to kill them. Phase 2, Quan ordered calmly. The human ships emerged from their hiding spots like wolves from shadows. They struck fast, targeting weak points that no alien species had ever thought to protect. Human engineers had studied every piece of Council technology they could find. They knew exactly where to hit. Plasma charges detonated against shield generators. The aliens' shields were powerful, but they were designed to stop direct assaults, not surgical strikes from multiple angles. Ion torpedoes struck weapon batteries. Kinetic penetrators punched through armor that was thick but not flexible. Humans didn't try to destroy the enemy ships. That would have been impossible. Instead, they crippled them systematically. Engines, weapons, sensors, communication arrays, everything that made the ships dangerous was methodically destroyed. "Admiral," Officer Min called out, "we're receiving surrender requests from 7 Council ships. They're asking for assistance with life support." Quan almost smiled. "Granted, send repair crews to any ship that stands down completely," and broadcasted a message to the main fleet. He turned to face the communication station. When the connection was established, he could see the bridge of the enemy flagship. The Etherian delegate flickered with what looked like rage. "Admiral Quan," it began. "We haven't surrendered," Quan interrupted. "We haven't even started fighting. What you've seen is just humans being creative with resources we had lying around. If you want to see what happens when we actually try..." He gestured to the tactical display, where more Council ships were reporting damage. "This is impossible," the alien said. "Your fleet is inferior in every way." "That's your problem," Quan replied. "You expected us to fight like you, we don't." Intelligence Officer Yun pushed her glasses up her nose and rubbed her tired eyes. The screens around her desk showed streams of data flowing past. For 3 days straight, she had been breaking apart the encrypted messages her team had intercepted from the Council fleet. At first, the communications seemed routine: status reports, supply requests, tactical updates. But as she dug deeper, patterns began to emerge, strange patterns that made her stomach clench with growing dread. She pulled up a holographic display, showing the galaxy. Different colored lines connected thousands of systems. At first glance, it looked like a trade network, but the colors meant something else entirely. "Director Tay," she called out. Her voice cracked from exhaustion. "You need to see this right now." Director Tay looked up from his own workstation. His face showed the same lack of sleep that had marked everyone in the intelligence bunker for the past week. The older man walked over, his steps careful but urgent. "What have you found?" he asked. Yoon highlighted sections of the display. "Remember, how the Council demands seemed random. Take 70% of resources here, 30% population there. We thought it was just typical alien cruelty." She zoomed in on a section showing the Aquari systems. The Aquari gave up their manufacturing worlds, all of them. In exchange, they were allowed to keep their homeworld and a few agricultural colonies, making them dependent on others for technology, Tay said thoughtfully. "Exactly." Yoon switched to another section. The Zephyrians surrendered their food-producing worlds, but they kept their industrial systems. Director Tay's eyes widened. "So the Aquari need the Zephyrians for food, and the Zephyrians need the Aquari for manufactured goods. It gets worse." Yoon brought up more data. The Crystalline Collective lost their mining rights, but they kept their research stations. The Vortex surrendered their research facilities, but maintained their warrior culture and training worlds. The pattern was becoming clear. Each species had been forced to give up something crucial, something that made them complete. But they had been allowed to keep one strength, one thing they excelled at. "It's not conquest," Tay said slowly. "It's network creation." Yoon nodded. "Every species depends on others for survival. The Aquari can't fight without Zephyrian food. The Zephyrians can't build weapons without Aquari technology. The crystalline collective provides the raw materials, but needs others for everything else." She pulled up a communication thread, the translation software struggling with multiple alien languages. "Look at this. A message from an Aquari counselor to a Zephyrian trade minister. They're discussing humans." The message appeared on screen. Director Tay read it aloud. "The humans are disrupting the balance. If they continue resisting, the Council may reduce our rations again. We cannot afford another food shortage." "And here," Yoon added another message, "from the Zephyrians to the Vorthak. They're worried that human resistance will lead to increased tribute demands from the Council." Director Tay sat down heavily in a nearby chair. The full picture was finally clear. The Council doesn't rule through fear alone. They've created an economic system where everyone needs everyone else, but they control the flow of resources. Exactly. Yoon brought up more intercepted messages. "Species that comply get better trade terms. Those that resist find their alliances diminished. Other species actually pressure them to submit, not because they believe in the Council, but because resistance disrupts their survival." She showed him another communication thread. "Look at this debate between different factions of the Aquari government. Half want to support human resistance, but the other half are terrified that it will lead to starvation." Director Tay stood up and walked closer to the display. "This is why no species has ever broken free. It's not just that the Council is strong, it's that breaking free would mean abandoning the network they need to survive." "But there's something else," Yoon said. She pulled up a different set of messages. "These are private communications between younger members of different species. They're not happy with the system." The messages showed a different tone. Complaints about the Council's demands, frustration with the dependency system. Some even contained questions about whether resistance was possible. "The younger generation didn't create these dependencies," Tay observed. "They inherited them. And they're starting to question whether the price is worth it," Yoon added, "especially after seeing how humans fought back against the same system." Director Tay rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "What about the Council themselves? Are they vulnerable?" Yoon smiled for the first time in days. "That's the interesting part. I've been tracking resource flows. The Council species, the Etherians, the Prime Vorthak, the eldest crystallines, they don't follow the same rules." She showed him a new display. "They've kept crucial capabilities that they force others to surrender. The Etherians control energy production. The Prime Vorthak maintain all military technology. The eldest crystallines control communication networks. So they're immune to the dependencies they force on others," Tay said. "Mostly, but not completely." Yoon's smile grew wider. "They've gotten comfortable. They assume the system will always work. They've never considered what happens if multiple species resist at once." Director Tay looked at the display showing the galaxy-wide network of dependencies. "We need to share this information. If other species understand how they're being controlled, they might be willing to work together to break free," Yoon finished. "The question is, how do we convince them that temporary hardship is better than permanent subjugation?" Director Tay looked at the flashing tactical display showing the ongoing space battle. "I think Admiral Kwan is already showing them that. The question is whether they're ready to listen." Ambassador Jin looked around the council chamber and felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Many of the floating seats were empty. The day Aquari delegation had left 2 days ago, followed quickly by the Zephyrians. The crystalline collective had simply stopped responding to council communications. The Etherian prime speaker's form pulsed with angry red energy. Around her, the remaining loyal delegates sat silent, their body language speaking of defeat even before the battle was over. "Ambassador Jin," the Etherian said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the walls vibrate. "You have destroyed something that took millions of years to build. The galactic peace, the ordered prosperity." Jin stood, feeling the weight of translated history on his shoulders. "We haven't destroyed anything, Speaker. We've simply offered an alternative." The main display showed space around Earth and beyond. Ships from dozens of different species hung in formation. Some were warships, others were civilian vessels that had joined in the past weeks. Many had arrived flying flags Jin had never seen before. "Alternative," the speaker repeated, her form brightening to nearly white. "You call this chaos an alternative? Species abandoning their obligations, fleet commanders refusing orders?" Jin nodded to Captain Park, who was handling communications. From the human delegation's ship, a new voice came through the speakers. "Ambassador Jin," Admiral Hyon reported. "The Aquari Third Fleet has just declared neutral status. They're requesting permission to return to their home systems." Her voice carried excitement barely contained. "Sir, we have reports of similar declarations from Vorthak fringe colonies and 3 crystalline mining cooperatives, the Etherian." Speaker's energy patterns shifted rapidly. "They don't understand. Without the council structure, there will be war, chaos. Species will fight over resources." "Like we did?" Jin asked. "We humans fought for resources before we reached space. We fought each other for millennia, but we learned something important." He gestured to the display showing the mixed fleet. "Fighting is expensive. Cooperation is profitable. The difference is choosing cooperation instead of having it forced on you." From her seat, Delegate Vesher of the Aquari spoke for the first time. She had remained in the chamber even as her fleets departed. "The human makes sense, Prime Speaker. My people fed themselves for 1,000 generations before the Council. We can do it again." "With what?" the speaker demanded. "Your manufacturing was surrendered centuries ago." Vesher's gills fluttered in what Jin recognized as their version of a smile. "The Zephyrians have offered to trade manufacturing technology for food production methods. Both our species benefit." The Zephyrian delegate rose, his bird-like form rustling with excitement. "We grow tired of dependency, Speaker. The humans showed us that saying no is possible. Their Admiral Quan proved that smaller forces can defeat larger ones through cleverness." Jin felt a surge of pride as more delegates began to speak up. Species that hadn't been heard from in the chamber for years started voicing their positions. "The humans didn't come here with superior technology," said the crystalline delegate. "They came with something we had forgotten, the will to choose their own path." On the display, more ships were changing their transponder codes, declaring independence from the Council fleet. Jin watched as entire battle groups simply left formation and began heading back to their home systems. Admiral Hyon's voice came through again. "Ambassador, I'm getting reports from all sectors. Council authority appears to be collapsing in outer systems. Species governments are reasserting sovereignty." The Prime Speaker's energy form began to fade, becoming translucent. "This is not victory," she said quietly. "This is the end of order. You have no idea what you have unleashed." Jin stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Speaker, with respect, the order you maintained was built on fear and dependence. People didn't choose it. They were trapped by it." He gestured to the mixed fleet on the screen. "Look at that. Species working together by choice, sharing technology freely, protecting each other voluntarily. That's a kind of order too." The speaker's form stabilized slightly. "And when conflicts arise, when resources become scarce, when old hatreds resurface, then we'll figure it out," Jin replied. "Together, as equals, making mistakes, learning from them, growing stronger." From the human fleet came a final report from Admiral Hyon. "Sir, the last council ships are withdrawing. The blockade is officially lifted." The chamber fell silent. Jin looked at the remaining delegates, representatives of species that were now free to choose their own futures. The weight of that freedom felt enormous, but also exhilarating. The Etherian Prime Speaker flickered one last time. "Perhaps," she said very softly, "it is time we too remembered what choice felt like." Jin nodded. The revolution was complete. The real work was just beginning.